There was a point in my life where I was really afraid to share my true thoughts and opinions. And I was very agreeable. And I thought that was the polite thing to do. I thought being a good person means that I should just avoid conflict at all costs, that I should not share my true thoughts to avoid conflict. That's what I just truly believed. I didn't realize how that was impacting me, because there were 4 or 5 things that it really did that made me feel sad and made me feel frustrated. I didn't realize that I was losing a sense of personal identity because I didn't stand up for anything. I was too scared to. So slowly my identity was just withering away. And as a result of not standing up to anything, I sucked at setting boundaries. And as a result of that, people took advantage of me a lot. And then more than that, I became a people pleaser. And it was this downward spiral where I started then to go, oh, okay, now I'm feeling really crap. I'm going to suppress my emotions as well. And then the people around me started losing respect for me. And all these terrible things started to happen. And I think the worst one for me was because I started to no longer stand up for myself and no longer voice any thoughts and feelings. I stopped thinking about complex things. I stopped thinking about how am I going to approach this conversation where I can share my opinions and stand up for myself? How can I be emotionally intelligent enough to not make the other person feel upset by me sharing my opinions? Which meant what? Which meant that I had no critical thinking skills. And I just got to this point where I just became a potato. I was basically a mashed potato. I just, blah. And that's when I learned the value of, you got to stand up for yourself. And look, you don't always have to stand up and share your opinions, because then you just bloody become annoying, right? There's this beautiful sensitivity that we all must develop. When should we stand up for the things we believe in? And when is it all right to just shut up? And that's this intricate balance that we all have to do in this life. And there would be times where we'll balance it wrong, and there'll be times where we balance it right. And we also have to accept that too. I've stood up for myself in times where there was really no need for me to say anything. And then there were times in my life still that I should have stood up for myself, but then I was too scared to. So just acknowledge, I just want to call that out, that I'm not perfect. I've done it right. I've done it wrong before. And I'll give you an example where I stood up for myself and I got attacked for it pretty damn harshly online. I was doing a Q&A night, and one of the questions that someone asked me was, they asked me, oh, Vin, what are some of your favorite podcasts that you like to listen to? And I shared with people genuinely one of my favorite podcasts. And one of my favorite podcasts that I love listening to is Joe Rogan. And then my team clipped out that part of the video and then they shared it on social media, and it went absolutely viral. Okay, so we had tens of millions of views on this. And then I had so many people leave comments like, oh my God, I didn't know you liked Joe Rogan. I'm going to have to unfollow you now. You're probably a right-wing gunslinging nut. They said all these crazy things. This was during the COVID times too. So that, again, it was just crazy. And I was like, no, I just really enjoy his podcast. I love him when he brings on physicists and scientists and all these different incredible thinkers from all over the world. I love how he's able to, let go of some of his old beliefs and adopt new beliefs when new evidence is provided. Again, I like the man's critical thinking ability, and I also enjoy his ability to be curious, right? It doesn't mean I agree with everything that he does. Doesn't mean that I agree with everything and anything that he says, right? And it was crazy because people just attacked me for it, and then other people cheered me for it. And I went, this is so interesting. And I mean, one of the greatest things that happened from that is Joe actually then followed me and then reached out to me, and we connected, and we started DMing each other. And then he invited me to his comedy club, and it was fantastic, right? But look, at the end of the day, what I'm saying is this. If you like something I don't like, I'm totally okay still loving you and being your friend. Because I appreciate that you grew up in a different world to me, potentially. You've had different experiences in this life, which will then alter your taste in podcasts, music. It could even be some of your political views. It's all right. It's all right. Hey, if you're finding this valuable, it'd mean the world to me if you could leave a like and subscribe if you haven't already, so we can help more people become better communicators in the world. All right, back to the video. I've learned from Richard Feynman, who's an amazing human being as well. And I started reading some of his books. And what I've learned about these brilliant minds in the world is that they're able to hold 2 opposing views in their mind at the same time. They can hold these 2 opposing views, and it's okay. They don't fall apart. They don't break. And I've also learned that you can take the good without the bad. It's okay. I've got friends who disagree with me on many things, and I think those friends of mine are so critical. Because if I don't have people who disagree with me, that means I'm living in a world where everybody agrees with me. Do you know what world I'm living in? I'm living in an echo chamber where we're all chanting the same thing. That's frightening. I need people to challenge me. I just hired a head of marketing. One of the things that I immediately complimented him on is I had this really rigid idea for a marketing campaign, and I shared the marketing campaign with conviction, and he kind of went, "Hey, Vin, I know it's my first week, mate. Gonna have to disagree with you." I loved that. Like he was kind of worried about doing it, and I was like, no, dude. I freaking love that. Thank you for disagreeing with me, right? It's one of the key reasons why I love my wife. I love Pei Wen, because when she disagrees with me, she tells me, and I'm like, oh my God, thank you so much for sharing that. Because if you didn't share that, I would have believed in something, and I would have done something that would have led me to potentially declining the business and destroying the business, right? It's so important to have people around you who think differently to you. That's one of the most critical things in this life. And I have listened to podcasts with many of my favorite podcasters before, not just Joe, but many other favorite podcasters where I listen to it and I'm like, oh, I actually don't really agree with that. I wonder why I don't agree with that. Wow, I guess I disagree with that because of X, Y. Interesting. All right. How do I feel about that now after thinking it through more critically? You know what? I still stand my ground. Do you know how important those thoughts are? I'm sharing this with you because I've now in my life realized that, for me especially, as I shine my light more brightly, and now every time I put out a video, more than 500,000 people, 1 million people are going to see it. It just goes back to that same rule. Not everyone's going to like you, and that's okay. Because you weren't made for everyone. I wasn't made for everyone. And if I try to please everyone, I will end up pleasing no one. There's a book by Robert Greene called 48 Laws of Power. And one of the laws of power is those people who have the courage to truly speak how they feel in their mind, they have power. But again, do it with compassion, love, be respectful while you're doing it. Because some people do it and they kind of come across as a bit of a dick, right? So I think you can do it in a kind way, a compassionate way, and a loving way, which has power. And you can kind of come across as a bit of a dick, which also has power in its own right. You choose what you want to do. And again, just call myself out. I have done it before in a way that comes across as a bit of a dick. So I've done it before as well. And there's a beautiful quote I'll leave you with. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, "To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment." I thought that was a nice one to kind of end on. That's kind of beautiful.